the original Midnight Express. Dennis Condrey, Randy Rose. Obviously, I like the storyline,
Right.
Midnight Express versus Midnight Express, but just as a standalone tag team, I got to admit, I don't know why I can't put my finger on it. I didn't like it as well. I got to think the secret sauce was Bobby Eaton.
Of course it was. And not only that, when you thought Midnight Express, who'd you think about? Jim Cornette. And this is
Yes.
not a knock on Paul Lee because I know that I've knocked on his weight long enough. But it's just I just don't. Whoops, there's my phone. I just don't think that that it worked without Bobby and Cornette.
Super fun to think about wrestling in this era. Um, we've talked a little bit about how I believe that the word new is almost like the kiss of death. The new Rockers, the new Midnight Express. But I like the original Midnight Express. That's kind of fun.
Oh yeah, that was kind of fun. But again, we all love Dennis Condrey. I didn't know that much about Randy Rose. He was a pretty cool guy to talk to and get to know, but I didn't know him. And Paulie, it's Paulie has had a great managerial career. Man, look what he's doing now. But it was like at that time compared to Jim Cornette, it was like no. So there.
Boy, this is kind of a sad time now in hindsight when I think about it. I mean, we've had so much fun watching the old Crockett stuff, and to know that the show kind of goes out not with a bang but with a whimper.
Sure. But it's Dusty. Dusty was still the booker this time. When did they have the angle where the and I think we've already covered that. But exactly when was the angle where they gouged Dusty's eyes and we
Not
fired
too
him?
long after
Yeah.
they took over.
Of course, and that was the end of Dusty's the booker.
Yes.
And then George Scott comes in, and of course, things really go downhill. I remember when George Scott, I've told the story when George Scott came in and we were all in that meeting, and he had no idea what he was doing. It was actually in hindsight very hilarious when you think about it. Here was this new regime, Jim Hurd and Jim fucking Barnett taking over the company, right? And we're all in this big conference room in Techwood, and we're all sitting around, sit down, and George Scott's at the head of the table, and he's got the format, and he looks at the format, and it's time for the meeting. Everybody's very quiet, and he's looking at the format, and he's still looking at the format, and nobody's saying anything. We're all waiting on George to talk, and everybody's kind of like looking at each other,
Right.
eyes shifting back and forth. And George all of a sudden realized there is silence.
Hmm.
And he says, Are you guys waiting on me? I thought the director usually runs the meeting. And that's what he did back then, right?
Right.
The director back in the old days ran the meeting, and so he ran over the format. And I have a feeling that of all of his great career of being a booker, that was the first time he ran a meeting and read a format to us. And I knew right then that this company was fucked. And that was probably one of the things that came to mind when I was offered a job with the WWF. And that was an hilarious moment. That was almost like a moment you would see in the program The Office.
Mm.
There's those jackoffs again.
Hey, speaking of jackoffs, you
Yeah.
you mentioned the whole Dusty Spike angle.
Yeah.
With the shoulder pads. That actually happened. You're not going to believe this.
Okay.
The sale is made official. So, let me back up. You guys record this episode we're watching here on the 14th. It airs on the 19th. The sale
Okay.
is official on the 21st.
Hmm.
Well, on the 24th, it would actually air on Thanksgiving Day, the 26th. But on the 24th, that's the spike angle.
Okay.
So 3 whole doggone days after Ted Turner buys it, that's when the spike angle happened.
Wow.
So we're just a couple of weeks away from that. And one of the things that's so weird that I think just makes me feel, I don't know, sort of out of place watching this is here we are, in what would have been the 19th of November. This should have been like the go home show for Starcade,
Uh huh.
but it wasn't. Starcade 88 actually happened after Christmas that year, the day after Christmas.
Right.
I think moving, and I understand why they had to move it because the WWE sabotaged Thanksgiving and Starcade with the creation of Survivor Series in 87. So a year later, if they want to be on pay per view, they just can't go heads up with the juggernaut that is the WWF. But Starcade being in December, that's going to become a thing in 1988. So I guess, in fact, there were way more Starcades in December than there were in November, but it just
Right.
feels weird to me.
Yep.
Well, I didn't have that on my bingo card that we'd get a Dennis Conju promo and he would sort of insinuate that, well,
Jim
Jim
Cor-
Cornette's, yeah, wow. I don't remember that promo at all.
What is the Jim always talks about his mom. Was she a wrestling fan? Is that
Oh, yeah, of course.
what she was? I didn't know.
Well, I assume she was because
Okay.
he was going to all those events before he could drive. He was a
Okay.
ringside photographer and all that stuff. So normally,
She got him there probably.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he talked about his mom a lot in the promos, and of course his mom with all the money and everything. And I didn't know in real life what. Would you take a look at this?
I mean,
Chip, Chip
the
the
enhancement talent is jacked, boy,
well, it's Chip the Firebreaker,
but without the gimmick.
right?
He looks fantastic too,
Curtis
boy.
Thompson. The other guy, I'm not so sure he is. I thought maybe it was Todd Champion at first, but it's not Todd.
Justice is his name.
Justice. And this is the Russian assassins, right?
1 and 2. Yeah, man. The guys who were probably taking the big loss here look like they're ready for a bodybuilding competition,
That's
and
right.
our other team maybe not so much.
And this guy is the Dark Angel, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. What was his name again? His real name? You have to Google that up.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
David Sheldon.
David Sheldon, that's it.